thing that we're going to talk about is the principle of swing plane. Plane of the swing is probably one of the most important and most talked about. I think you'll agree, Ben. One of the most talked about and most important things about a golf swing. If a player is consistently on plane with a square club face, it's quite easy to be consistent. Okay. So I like to simplify things, and one of the ways to do that, and I have to give credit to my friend Robert Baker again for coming up with this concept, because it really simplifies the plane of the swing. It's put some aeroplane wings on a shaft here. Okay, so with the correct setup, a good plane would be somewhere around here. A steep plane would obviously be like that, and a flat plane would be too much this way. Okay, so if you think of it, I often tell people, if you want for a good plane, fly the aeroplane over the right shoulder. Okay, especially youngsters, a nice image for them: fly the aeroplane over the right shoulder. Don't fly the aeroplane over your head; the plane will be too steep. Don't fly the aeroplane too much around your back; the plane will be too flat. So it's a lovely image to show people, to understand basics of the plane going back. We can get highly complicated with the golf swing plane, and we're about to get a little more complicated, and I'll show you some examples on there. But this is a nice way to explain the plane, especially to 99% of your clients who are mostly amateurs. Okay, what is the correct plane? Why is this a good plane? Why is it a good plane? Well, basically, the swing plane is pretty much determined by the club that you have at address. So how is the swing plane determined? Well, it's determined by the club at address. So here we can see, obviously the driver is longer and flatter, and I've got a 5-iron here, which is shorter and slightly steeper. So the correct plane is parallel to the club at address. Okay, so for a driver, it's flatter than for an iron, because the iron at address is steeper, so parallel to that is steeper. So a driver swing plane is going to look more like that, and an iron is going to look more like that. Okay, parallel to where we started. Okay, obviously a wedge, which is even steeper, is going to be parallel to that, which is more here. Okay, I mean, a little bit either way is not a big deal. You know, there's a grey area that where you don't have to get too finicky about how. I mean, you know, if Tiger or Ernie's plane's there instead of there, it's not going to cause that much difference. This footage is taken years ago when I was on tour with these guys, and you can see it's a little steeper than the original plane, and you can see it's a little shut. Okay, but it flattens out on the way down to be bang on plane, parallel to where it was at address. Okay, and Felder did the same. Took it a little shut, so it got a little steeper. And then on the way down, it would shallow out and get back to square. Okay. There's two world number ones who did very similar things with the plane. Okay. The important thing is, coming down, they're both perfectly back on plane. So the swing plane, as you'll see, is parallel. The correct plane is parallel to the shaft that you started with at address. Tiger in 2000, when he was pretty much unbeatable. Okay, here's the perfect plane. Doesn't really get much better than this.
Was he still working with Jarman?
He was still with Butch, and I'm going to talk now about Tiger's evolution of the swing. Look at this Wakey. Thanks for coming. Okay. It's quite interesting that the caddy is holding the club, Steve, and he's holding it perfectly on plane as well. That is probably the best example we ever see of a technically correct plane. But don't make the mistake of thinking that if this is the swing plane here, that the club must stay on that line. It doesn't stay on that line. As you can see, it elevates above that line, but parallel to it. Okay. If you stayed on that line, you would get flat. If you stayed on that line, you would swing flat and behind yourself. The path of your arms would be behind yourself. Okay. Path of your arms would be behind you.
And at the very first part, till it gets hit high, but the club then be close to that line.
It stays on that line. Stays on that line. Stays on that line until it's toe up and pointing down the line along the line of the feet. You can imagine that the club sweeps away on this board here. See that? It's not above it and it's not underneath it. It sweeps away on this board here. Gets toe up and it elevates parallel to that. Parallel comes back down onto this board and then hands back to where they were, club head back to where it was. Okay. That is a perfect example of the swing plane. Path of the hands is so incredibly important. We have touched on it today because path of the hands, remember, I said, is basically the hands start here. Here's my blue foam wall. The hands need to return back inside that wall. Okay. So the path of the hands is very, very important. Path of the hands above the right shoulder and back down to where you started. This is a good path for the golf club. Look how the hoop stays on the same. The hoop stays on the same plane because I have a good path there. Okay. What we see most common is the arms go away and the person's outside. Okay. And then a good player, as we discussed, will be, I'm outside with my hands, so I'm going to get the club inside and then they go like this. They then go like this. Out of the hands and get the club back inside. Okay, we've spoken about that. So in Tiger's case here, I know you asked me about the path of his hands. Path of his hands are pretty good. They're going straight back and then on a slight curve, as you can see, on this curve to the top. When we go to talking about the explainer, in my opinion, the explainer gets your hands a little deep. So here's where it can become confusing, but don't get confused, please. If you are confused, tell me, because then I'm not doing my job. This is going to be path of the hands. This is going to be the plane. Here's a good path and a good plane. Okay. Here is a good path and a flat plane. Agreed? Here's a good path and a steep plane. Agreed? Here's a good path and a good plane. Now here's a good plane and a flat path. Here's a good plane and a good path. Here's a good plane and a steep path. Plane's still good though. Path steep. It's in front of me. So there's an issue. So this Okie doesn't need a lesson about the swing plane. He's got a great swing plane. He needs a lesson about the path of his hands. The path of his hands need to be more behind him so he can be back inside this imaginary blue wall. Okay. Path of the hands is, I cannot tell you how important the path of the hands is. But let's go back to Tiger. Why would he want to change that?
We tried years to get there.
When he won the Masters. Okay. He's got more planes than Heathrow Airport here. Here's the issue. Here's the issue. Does he get back to where he started? No, he doesn't. Okay, that's Tiger on the right in 97. On the left is in 2000. Almost unbeatable. I think he won 9 times. Here he won his first major. So Tiger looked at this and he said, oh, forget about the fact that I'm across the line at the top, but more importantly, through the ball, I'm out of the hands, under the club, and I flip it. And with a driver, it goes straight right, or I flip it this way. So it drove him nuts. Okay, to this day it drives him nuts. You read The Big Miss by Hank Haney, and I suggest all of you read it. It's a really interesting book. And next time someone comes to you and says, what's it like teaching a tour player? Just give them the book, because a lot of tour players are quite difficult. It's a tough game, so they need someone to take out their frustration on a lot of time. And they will, if you're the coach, you get in the firing line. But you'll see in that book that this drives Tiger nuts to this day, where the hands are out and the club head's in and he flips it like this. Okay, so Butch and Tiger recognized this, and they knew that the way to go was to get to there. Okay, it took 3 years to get to there. Alright, it took 3 years to get to there. Here's really, what I'm going to show you now, in my opinion, is a very, very interesting thing. Okay. And people talk about, why did Tiger change this and why did he change that? He changed that for that on purpose. Okay. In my opinion, what happened after that was not on purpose. So let's look at what happened after that. So what did he want to do? He had to get away from being across the line, because that got his hands out and the club head in. So now the path of the club head was away from in, but the hands are swinging left. Look at the hands, left, left. So who does this remind you of from earlier today? Richard Sterney. Okay. Tiger's turn was good, his grip was good, but just at the last second he would go across the line. Okay. So his cause was being across the line. Sterney's cause was the grip, which got him across the line, which ended up in the trouble. Tiger's cause was across the line. They wanted to get him to this swing on the left. So how did they do that? This is what they did. Here's Butch and Tiger. That's Butch like 500 hamburgers ago. Watch this. This is what he worked on to get to where he wanted to be. Look at how he spins the shaft open, spins the face open, way open, and lays it off. Okay, that's his practice swing. Open the face and lay it off. Then on the way down, bring the hands close. Remember, trying to get Sterney's hands closer, get inside the wall. And then through the ball, everything's correct. Hands back to where they started, and the club from the inside. So look at this. Look what Tiger's doing. Look what he's doing. Spin the shaft, flatten out the shoulders to get it laid off. Okay? Now you work for 3 years on spinning the shaft, flattening out the shoulders, spin the shaft, flatten out the shoulder, and you look, okay, that's right. And you look, that's right. And now you hit, and you do that for years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. What's going to happen? Eventually you're going to look like this. So now, let's look at that. So here is, and I remember standing with Robert Baker at this tournament saying, Butty, it's over. He's not going to be winning as much. And that's exactly what happened. Okay. This is 2003. Remember what I said. When you look like this and you keep checking, look what eventually happens. Look at the plane now. Compared to that. Look at the plane now. Look at the position now. A little too laid off. Look where the hands go again. Too far away. And look how the club doesn't come back to where it started. Look where the hand started. Down here.
Restart the draw.
And then it came. Too far away. So after so many years of trying to get away from this and going to this, which is correct. So you did, obviously, I mean, you perfected it, you got perfect. But the problem is, it's like when an amateur comes in and they've got a grip like this and you tell them to change it for stronger and they do this, okay, after 3 weeks this doesn't feel funny anymore. So now they go here. After 5 weeks it doesn't feel funny anymore. So now they go here. And they still think it's neutral. They come back to you. Yeah, that neutral grip you taught me, that's not a neutral grip. It is, it's the same grip I had. It's not the same grip you had. So once something starts feeling familiar, you think, am I still doing it? And now you over-exaggerate. You go too much the other way. So what happened was with Tiger, he went too much the other way. So look at how it also affected. It affected many things. Watch. Look at his eye line. Okay? Look at his eye line. Let me get him with a 3-wood. Okay. Look at his shoulder plane. Look at his shoulder plane. And his arms went out. And his arms stayed in. Okay. Again, this is 2000, perfect plane. We're going to went too much the other way. So what happens is, now we go back, so there's all sorts of planes and paths going on here. Okay? All sorts of planes and paths. So what happened was he started from always checking of rotating the face and checking that it was right. His whole body started, his head got high, his body started going this way. His plane and the shoulders got flat. So now everything on the way down worked away from him. And then he was back to this again. Basically back to where he didn't want to be. Okay. But he was laid off, but still back to where he didn't want to be. Hands out, clubbing under the plane. Drives him nuts. I'm back to where I started, but for a different reason. See, now I have to change my swing again. Why are you changing your swing? You won everything in 2000. Why did you change your swing? I didn't change my swing on purpose. Okay? So, fire Butch, not winning anymore. Fire Butch, let's get the next open. We're now on the principle of the width of arc. Extension of the arms and hands away from the center of rotation during the swing. Basically, width of arc affects distance. Extension of the arms and hands away from the center of rotation during the swing. The easiest way to understand width of arc is that always hear about keep your width in the backswing, be wide, have a wide golf swing. And I've seen a lot of mistakes being made with this, and over the years, when too much emphasis is placed on width, people start to think that width means wide, wider, widest is an advantage. It's not. Okay, because you can be too wide, you can also be too narrow. So what is the correct way to understand width? It's pretty much the distance, when you set up, the distance from the butt end of the club to the center of your chest, okay, should remain more or less the same through the swing. Okay, I see a lot of mistakes where people are taught to keep width. I remember a very classic example of a player that plays on a British player that plays on our Sunshine Tour, and he's very good friends with one of our country's top international golfers. I'm not going to mention his name here. Who used to help him with the swing, and this particular player who was doing the coaching, doing the helping, was a very good player. Is someone that has beautiful natural width in his golf swing, and so he would tell everyone, have width, you know. So this player came to me and he looked like this. Okay, so he had overdone a good thing, because you ideally want to maintain the same width that you set up at address. I like to explain it like this. It becomes quite easy to understand. So this hoop really needs to maintain its relationship with my body throughout the swing. This radius will stay the same. So when you start extending, so that this hoop hits me on the back, you've actually increased the radius and therefore got too much width. Okay. And if this radius gets smaller, look how the hoop's too close to my shoulder here, then you've decreased the radius and you're looking for other problems there. Alright. You know, the radius of the swing, for me, it's not something that I see that's such a common factor in how well a person hits a ball. Okay, it's not something I'm hardly ever giving someone a radius lesson. You know what I'm saying? But what the radius of the swing often tells you about is other things that are going wrong. I especially find that when someone's left arm is folding and they're losing the radius of their swing, it's very often because, as you see here, I'm not turning properly. So the lesson here is really, you know, turn your body, turn your hips, turn your shoulders, then you can keep your radius. If the hips and shoulders don't turn enough, it looks like this and the radius gets lessened. Okay, that's a very common thing. So do you want to call that a radius lesson? Well, I don't think so. Yes, it's about the radius, but the problem is it's your turn that's causing the loss of radius there, or the width of arc. So, you know, where radius really, or width of arc really for me, often comes up as a symptom and much less as a cause. Okay, so the cause of the problem is my body's not turning, that's why the width of my arc is like this. Or my radius has got, wow, I've lost my radius because I'm really wide here. Well, that for me is a leverage lesson. It's about folding the right arm to gain more leverage, and about perhaps cocking the wrists. So again, yeah, it affects the radius, but my lesson is about folding your right arm. We'll see that Felder has quite a soft left arm, and Ernie has always had that ramrod straight left arm. But I'll tell you that if Ernie puts his hand down like this, his arm, his elbow practically can go the other way. He's double jointed. So when Ernie's arm is relaxed and soft, it looks ramrod straight. This is how he's built. Okay. Felder always had a slightly softer left arm in his swing. But the radius from the beginning was always the same. Okay. Always the same. Same, not like he goes straight at the top. He has a naturally very straight left arm at address, and it stays that way through the swing. So you can play with a slightly softer left arm like Felder does, or you can have a ramrod straight left arm. The important thing is that the radius remains pretty much the same from the beginning. Then you have to look at, why is the arm bending? Is it bending just because it bends? Or is it bending because the grip's in the palm? Or is it bending because the turn isn't finished? You have to look at, as I said today earlier, it's always why. Left arm's bending, why? Just because it bends. Turn's good, grip's good. Just bends the left arm. Okay, then you can maybe say, look, it is affecting the ball striking. Just feel like your left arm remains a little straighter. But if it's bending because the grip's bad, well, that's your lesson. It's a grip lesson. If it's bending because the turn's bad, your lesson's a turn lesson. And then, you say to them, you're not turning so your left arm's bending. Make sure you turn and then you can feel your left arm straighter. Okay, so you paint them the picture. And you always exaggerate it. It's important to exaggerate. Okay. You say, your grips, say maybe the grip looks like this. That's weak. But you say to them, your grip's weak and it's in the palm, so you can't use your wrist, so your left arm bends because you can't use your wrist. If you fix your grip and get it stronger and get it underneath the heel of the hand, you can then use your wrist, left arm can remain straight. So now they understand the picture.